you are a public speaker, if you're a person who likes to present to audiences and wants to do it well, I highly recommend that you buy this book. How to Develop Self-Confidence and Influence People by Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie. This version here is the revamped one. The original book came out in 1926, a long time ago. And I can recall reading that book, probably the original one, probably 45 years ago. And it is filled with gems of wisdom on what to do as a speaker. And most of those gems have been passed on to this newer edition. Here's one that you mightn't have thought about before. It says, curiosity. Who is not susceptible to it? Curiosity. Who is not susceptible to it? Then he goes on to say, so arouse your audience's curiosity with your first sentence and you'll have their interested attention. Now, in many of the stories that I do, I set the scene, the time, the place, and bring in the protagonist. You don't necessarily have to do that in a great hurry, so long as your first sentence holds their interest. I can recall one of my longer stories, it probably goes about 45 minutes, called Lost. It's about a little aeroplane that gets lost over the vast reaches of the Pacific Ocean. How do I start it off? I say, ladies and gentlemen, imagine that you're sitting at home next to your desk, and on that desk is a globe of the world. You're idly looking at it, and you notice that the areas of ocean and sea are coloured in bright blue, and the land masses in reds and greens and greys and browns. It's easy to distinguish between the two. And you happen to be looking at the Americas, Canada, America, Mexico, Central America, South America. Then you reach across and you just turn the globe a fraction towards you, and you bring into perspective the Atlantic Ocean, North Atlantic, South Atlantic. You turn it a bit more and Africa comes into view. And then again you turn it another, perhaps a third of a turn, a quarter of a turn, and you're looking at the Indian Ocean, with Australia coming in on one side, Southeast Asia above, and then you give it a good little turn and suddenly you're looking at nothing. Nothing but blue, bright blue, all the way from the top of the globe to the bottom. And you are looking at a replica of the world's greatest ocean, the Pacific Ocean. Now, as you look at that globe and see all that blue, you get your eyes down close to it to see if you can pick up something. And you see little specks here and there. And each of those little specks has some printing next to it. Hawaiian Islands, Fiji, Solomons, and so forth. But they're just tiny dots, tiny specks. You can hardly see them. Imagine then how small one little tiny single-engine aircraft would be against that vastness of blue. And thus begins my story. Quite a long introduction, but then the story is long. But I want to set the scene of the almost hopelessness of trying to find one little aeroplane in that vast sea of blue, the Pacific Ocean. See what I mean? Never tell an audience, I'm now going to tell you a story about. Don't do that. Just lead into the story. Lead in naturally. Of course, you can say that what I do sometimes, more or less for amusement. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a storyteller. What do storytellers do? And you always get a reply from the audience. Tell stories. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in a land far away. Now you might think that's corny, but it always gets a laugh. Why? Because they know a story's on the way, and they know that that sets them back to childhood when they were fully engrossed in listening to stories. Curiosity. When they know a story's on the way, they're always curious. If you can arouse that curiosity with your first sentence and keep it going for the next, say, 90 seconds, you've got them hooked. You can then speak to them for an hour and a half, providing you have such things as audience interaction, plenty of variety, but that, of course, is other subject matter. I hope you enjoyed this little education on storytelling.